Hey Bookish Babes, and welcome to my book nook. For those that are new around here, the name's Rainey Barton, and I'm an elementary music teacher and middle school musical theater teacher by day, and I read books and stuff in between. I read all different types of books. My main jam is thriller and horror, but I've recently really started liking romance and fantasy, and I also read all other types of books. So if you're interested in hearing from an eclectic type of reading source, then I'm the girl to do that. And so make sure to like, subscribe, all the things. Also, if you're not new, I know my hair is down. It's like never down. It's always in a messy bun, but you know what? I went the extra mile for you. I didn't change out of my workout clothes, but you know what? This is a cool shirt. It has like a girl doing cool circusy stuff. So like, it fits the vibe, right? Right. Okay, you're probably here because you're ready to see my May wrap up about the books that I read in May. I read 12 books, which is pretty standard, and we're going to get to like all of my stats in just a second. But 12 is typically around like, that's my best month that I've had for like 3 months this year. And I read some really great books, including my favorite book of this year so far. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait to share that book with you. It was just fabulous. But without further talking, let's go through my stats, and then we'll talk about other stuff. All right, for my stats, I'm going to pop them up on the screen. If you see me looking over here, it is because my stats is also on my laptop so I can make sure I'm saying the right things to you. But like I said, I read 12 books this month, and so that is the same as what I've read in January and April, so that is pretty much my best reading months so far. I read the most amount of pages this month. I read 3,768, so that is my highest month so far. I didn't DNF any books this month, but my audio hours this month were 44-ish hours, and that's my second highest month. I listened to a lot of audiobooks because I had a lot of anticipated new reads, and so I tried to read them within the week that I had them, and so audiobooks definitely helped with that. As far as my reading method goes, I read 2 books physically. I read 1 purely audiobook, and the rest were mixed media. My favorite thing ever is to read the book and actually have it physically in front of me and listen to it on audio. That's like my favorite combination. So I always like to do that a lot. And then as far as genres go, which I normally look up what the genre is on Google or Goodreads, I read 1 mystery, 2 magical realism, 1 nonfiction, 5 romances, I'm in my romance bag right now apparently, and 3 thrillers. So the most I read this month was romance. I was just feeling a romancy vibe, you know. And then as far as book type goes, 10 were a novel, 1 book was a novella, and 1 was a short story series, which we're going to talk about that one in just a minute because it was quite interesting. And then as far as my ratings go, my lowest rating this month was a 3.5 stars, which I think that's really awesome. I had 3 3.5 stars, I had 4 4 stars, and I had 5 5 stars. So honestly, May was a pretty good month. It's not the best month I've ever had, but it was pretty high up there. And then as far as the age range of the books go, 9 of them were adult books, 2 were considered new adult, which is like that college-y age, and then 1 was a young adult book. I don't read young adult very often, but the one that I read was not bad. As far as the ages go, I read 1 book from 2007, 1 book from 2008, 2 books from 2020, 2 books from 2021, and 6 books from 2022. So I am all about trying to read my new anticipated books that I have, reading them in the year that I actually bought them. As far as how I got them, I owned 10 of these books and I borrowed 2 of these books from the library. One of them was just an ebook that I actually borrowed an audiobook that I purely borrowed from Libby. I also read 11 standalones and 1 series this month. I actually finished a series this month, and that was all that I did. So I wasn't really too much into series for this month at least. Now, for people of color, I read 9 books that were not from people of color and 3 that were. And so I would love to actually make sure that I'm doing a better job about that. As far as it, I believe I read 1 from Hawaiian and African American descent. And then the other 2, I cannot remember off the top of my head which ones I read from. Oh, from 2 Korean authors. So that was really awesome, especially because it was AAPI month, which is Asian American and Pacific Islanders month. So it just worked out that I was reading books from people for that. And then 3 books were from returning authors and 9 were from new authors. I've been reading a lot of new authors this year, but honestly, it's just because I've been reading a lot this year. So it's not really that they're new. It's just more that like I'm finally actually catching up on reading stuff. And so everybody's new to me. And then finally on the screen is just all of the books that I've read this year from the authors. And as you can see, I've read 4 from Ali Hazelwood because I read The Love Hypothesis this year and her 3 STEM novellas, her little mini novellas that she released. And then she has her new book, Love on the Brain, which is coming soon. So she'll probably be the author that I read the most from this year. But I really just love seeing this wheel because like you can see like when I finish series and stuff like of different authors, how many books I've read of theirs. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, so that is all of the stats for this month. I'm really excited with how it all panned out. So now let's go over to the books, basically from worst to best. And maybe next month I will try and do a different way of deciding how I organize these, because I feel it's kind of boring to just go from that way, but I can't think of one yet. So let's kick it. So I have my 3.5 star reads, and I ranked those in order of just the ones that disappointed me the most. My least favorite read of the entire month was the one I read on like the last day of the month, and that was Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. Now, I'm not going to say I hated this book, because I definitely didn't. I gave it 3.5 stars. Like, I still really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to others. However, I've only read one other Christina Lauren book before. It was their Christmas rom-com. It was their Christmas romance, and I absolutely loved it. It was 5 stars. Now this, I think it was trying too hard. It sells itself as a romance, but it's honestly just a thrillery adventure type book with like romance splashed in every so often. And I think it was just trying to be something that it wasn't. It wanted to be all Texas outlaws and like like Texas Hold'em and gun shooting and like all this sort of stuff, and like be extra cool because it's about treasure maps and stuff, but like or treasure hunting. But it just didn't do it for me. Like, there are some plot points in this that happened that made me really angry, which by the time this video is out, that video won't be out yet, because I'm going to be doing it. You're going to be seeing my actual thoughts on this in a reading vlog as well, that's coming out probably next week on anticipated romance reads. But there were some plot points in here that just did not vibe with me, and I got really mad at this book. And so because of that, I could not rate it any higher. I think once you read it, you will understand. And if you have read it, let me know down below what you thought of it, because I know some people think this is 5 stars, and others, like my friend Gabby, or from Gabby Reads, ranked this a 2 star. It was just in the middle of the road for me. I still liked it. I'll still pick up other stuff of hers, or of theirs, but I just don't think this really hit the mark for me. And that's where we're at with this. And the next one I'm extremely sad about, and this is also going to be in a vlog, but this vlog is not coming out anytime soon, so just don't expect to see it anytime soon. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's a secret vlog. I read An Honest Lie by Taryn Fisher, and I was so freaking excited for this book because the main character's name is Rainey, and it's spelled the correct way, which everybody spells my name with an E, and I'm like, do you know how to spell the word Rainey in the dictionary? And when they say, or I'll say Rainy, and then they'll be like how? I'm like in the dictionary, and then they go EY, and I'm like, do you know how to spell? You don't know how to spell. Anyway, it was about Rainey, and like it's a cult book, and like how she used to be in a cult in the past, and like this culty stuff is coming back to haunt her, but this girl's just stupid. She brought it upon herself. I can't even explain what happens because that's like a major giveaway, but like she brought all of this on her. She is just dumber than dumb, and it was just frustrating. The main thing that I also didn't really love that everybody was getting frustrated about across the board is that there are too many flashbacks. Too many flashbacks to her in the cult. Not enough time in the present where all the actual action and drama and stuff is happening. And it's just like, yeah, I want to hear about her past, but there was just too much of it going on. And so because of that, I had to give it a 3.5 star. I honestly haven't seen anybody rant and rave about this book. It wasn't bad. Like I said, I enjoyed it. I'm so happy that there was representation for my name in there and whatnot, but it just didn't slap like I wanted it to slap, But it's a pretty cover. Okay, the last 3.5 star book that I had is the only YA that I read, and it's the first book I've read by Casey McQuiston, and it's I Kissed Shara Wheeler. I thought it was Shara until I listened to the audiobook. So this one, first, this is like one of the prettiest books that I have. Like, it's just gorgeous, and I'm never going to let go of it, even though I didn't absolutely love it. But this one is okay because it's about Chloe Green, and she's a senior, and she wants to be valedictorian, and there's the popular girl, Shara Wheeler, that is also going up for it against her. She also has, like, a crush on Shara, at least she thinks she does, and Shara kisses her, and then disappears suddenly, and then you find out that Shara has kissed 3 other people as well, like her boyfriend, this, like, nerdy kid, and her, and she's left a bunch of clues for them to find her and where she is. And the whole thing that bothered me with this, and why I gave it a 3.5 star, is because I was like, why... when she didn't give you a lot of attention before, she kissed you, she runs away, and then she does all these clues to, like, help you guys find her. Like, why would you go searching for her if she just kissed you randomly? She wasn't that great to you beforehand. Like, she's just playing a game with you, and she kissed 2 other people. Like, I don't really get what the motivation was to follow her. Like, unless you were madly in love with her, which, I don't know. Anyway, that just kind of threw it off for me. it was still a really good book, and it was really cute, and I really loved the LGBTQ representation in this. Like, I thought this book had a really great message of, like, being okay to express yourself no matter what, and, like, just everything. I loved all of the characters in it, like Rory and Shara and Chloe, and just, they were all so cute. And Georgia, her best friend, it was just fabulous. So the representation in here was great. I think this is a really iconic book that could definitely be for people that are afraid of, like, coming out, or just, like, you know, want to read more, like, queer representation. This is a great book for that. It just didn't really hit that hard for me, just because I just thought the concept was a little weird. Like, why would you want to follow her when she did that to you? But I still loved it. I can't wait to still read Red, White, and Royal Blue, especially because now they're going to be making an adaptation on it. They just announced that, like, today. And I also want to read One Last Stop. So hopefully I'll get to those soon. But overall, not bad. All right, up next are the two books that are from my Korean authors, and I will start with the one that I liked the least, and that would be Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. It was translated by Anton Her. And this is a collection of short stories, like sci-fi, realism, horror stories. And when I say they are a little horrific, they are. After I read the first short story, I wasn't sure if I was going to keep on and go on with the rest. I am glad I did. I did read this for Katie Colson Smut Flung, and she ended up hating it. She gave it a 2 stars because it is a little horrific. Like, I'm not going to tell you about the first one because it'll gross you out. But the first one is called The Head, and I still remember it vividly because it was just that disgusting. And I'm pretty sure I told my husband about it, and he was like, what the hell are you reading? Anyway, I believe I ranked this 4 stars because I normally go through and I rank each short story, and then I see which ones I ranked the most of, and that's how I ranked it. So if I was going to say my favorites, I would say it was, hold on. While The Head was gross, it was still a good story. But my favorites were, if I remember correctly, Goodbye My Love. I loved Ruler of the Winds and Sands. I think Snare was pretty good, and The Embodiment. Although I probably should have marked which ones I really loved. But if you read this, those are the ones that I enjoyed. I can't even say what these stories are about because they're all significantly different than the other. But they're just like weird, creepy, sci-fi horror book, like short stories. So if you're into that, then like this could be your jam. There are 10 stories, I believe. Yeah, there's 10 short stories. It's a good time. It flew by super quick. But anyway, it's a fun little short story Korean collection. Then the next book that we have, I read for Kayla's Literally Dead book club, and I absolutely loved this. It was 4 star for me, and it was Confessions by Kanae Minato. And this one was really intriguing. I read it fairly fast. So this one was about Yuko Moriguchi, and her 4-year-old daughter was murdered, or at least she thinks murdered. And so she is retiring, and so she is giving a lecture to all of her final students, and she basically says at the end of it, by the way, I know the 2 students that murdered my kid, and they're here in this room. And so then, like, there's 5 different chapters, or 6 maybe, and they all come from some different perspective of someone that was involved or, like, directly affected by the murder of her daughter. And so she's one of them, and then, like, one of the murderers is one of the perspectives, and, like, all of that. And you know pretty early on, like, who did it. Like, that's not a thing. That's hidden. But it was just so good because twist after twist would happen at the end of like every new perspective. And then by the end, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe how this is all tied together and like relates. It was fantastic. I really liked it. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because there was some like iffy stuff here and there, like some HIV stuff that like, I was like, that's not really rooted in science or research. That seems a little far-fetched. And some other stuff. But overall, it was really intriguing. I flew through it super quick. All of the like characteristics and details were like really, really interesting. So I definitely recommend it. I can't wait to hear what the rest of them thought about it on the live show in a couple of days. But I'm really glad that I finally got to this because it definitely was a good read. And then the other book that I read that was a 4 star that I'll have to pop up on the screen because I do not actually own it is the audiobook, the 3rd book in the STEM novella series by Allie Hazelwood, Below Zero. And this follows our girl Hannah. And so each of the books follows one of the 3 friends and like their relationship with like whoever they end up with. And this one was about the girl named Hannah, and she wants to work for NASA, I believe. And she basically has like a one-night stand with like this scientisty dude, like forever, like ago while she was still in college, but he wants to like have dinner with her and actually get to know her, and she doesn't want to have a relationship because like she just wants to be casual and he doesn't want that. And so then she ends up hating him later on for like some stupid like, I can't remember exactly what the reason is, but she ends up not liking him. And then, of course, they get stuck together on, like, this trip of hers gone wrong, and, like, he has to save her, and so then it's, like, them talking through their issues, and can she actually be with him or not? It's, like, a 3-hour audiobook. Like, they're all super short, and I read it in, like, a day. It was really cute. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because I honestly think the reason that she hated him was kind of unclear, and it didn't really make sense, like, why she was... Like, that just didn't really make sense. And so for me, I was just like, okay, well, it doesn't make sense why. Like, and then it also didn't make sense why he's still pining for her, like, almost 10 years later. Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like it was kind of, like, insta-lovey, but, like, not, because, like, they weren't together the whole time. Like, it's not like they saw each other for, like, a week and then instantly fell in love with each other, even though they kind of did. So it was a little insta-lovey. It was not my favorite of the series by far. I've only given one of the 3 books in that short or novella series of 5 stars, and it was the first one, Under One Roof. Absolutely loved it. I did like this one, I think, better than Stuck With You, though, which is the second one about the girl in the elevator. So if I was going to rank them in order, it would be Under One Roof, and then Below Zero, and then Stuck With You. But this one was still really cute. I'm glad I read it. And like I said, I can't wait for her newest book, Love on the Brain. And the last 4-star book that I read was Sharks in the Time of Saviors by Kawai Strong Washburn. And this book has been on my shelf for a while. I got it basically after I saw Noelle Gallagher read it, because she said she loved it. And this one is narrated by a full cast on audiobook, so I definitely recommend, if you're going to listen to it on audio. There are, I believe, 3 or 4 different character narrations. There's the mom, the main character, the brother, the sister. I think there's 4. This book was great. I will say it was interesting because of, like, the way that the author writes. Like, they just kind of talk about gross stuff, like, about, like, the parents, like they're talking about how they like to sleep with each other, like, in front of their kids. And then sometimes they talk about, like, farting and, like, other things. And that was a little weird, and it threw me off, like, the casualness and the banter in this book. But the story was great, and I loved, like, the characteristics and the narration and, like, the way that you got to experience all of the characters, like the brother and stuff. So basically, if you've never heard of it, it's about Nainoa, but they call him Noah in this, and how he basically falls overboard, like, on their way to visit their family because they're extremely broke, and he falls in shark-infested waters, and they freak out thinking he's going to die, of course, but the sharks deliver him back to his family, like, in their mouth, and he's always had this super, like, connection with animals, and so after that, he basically, like, gains powers, and so, like, it's basically the aftermath of what happens when those powers, but they end up splitting and separating because of that, and then after that, another supernatural event happens, and the family has to, like, come back together and, like, figure out what it means to be a family again. This book was so sad. This book also took me a while just because, like, the way it's written, like, I had to reread things a couple of times because it was pretty, like, deep in, like, what it said, but it was so good. The family dynamics in this are absolutely awesome, and I just really, really, really liked it. It was pretty funny at times. Like, the author also writes really funny scenes. Like, there is one scene that I will always remember that I'm just like, that is disgusting. I can't believe that actually happened, but it's also hilarious that you wrote about that. And I'm not going to, like, disclose any more information to that, even though it's not a major plot point, like, even in the slightest. But I still really loved this book, so I'm really glad that I got to it, and I just am so glad I had the best time. And I picked this for my book club to read, and they said it was one of their favorite book club selections that has ever been picked. So, you know, if I can't pick a good book, then what good am I? You know? And then finally, let's talk about all of my 5-star reads. And they are in a specific order, so let's go through it. Well, except for the first one, because I only rate nonfiction books 5 stars if I love them, and then if I didn't love them, I don't rate them, because I don't think that's really fair to rate somebody's personal work, especially if it's their life story. But I did love this one, and so I gave it 5 stars, and that is Know My Name by Chanel Miller. I finally read this book. It's been on my TBR for like 2 or 3 months, and it is fantastic. I will say, it's extremely wordy. It's like almost 400 pages, and it really could have been cut down into probably 200, maybe a good 300. But I still think it's a fantastic novel. If you don't know what it's about by now, it's about Chanel Miller, who was sexually assaulted by Brock Turner on Stanford campus a couple years back. And it's basically the story of, like, what she went through after, and, like, the trial, and, like, all of the stuff that happened, and how women are not necessarily, like, treated appropriately for, like, sexual assault cases, and how, like, you know, just, like, all the stuff that happened to her. And it was just so powerful to read. I loved listening to it. The audiobook is fantastic because she narrates the audiobook, and so I highly recommend, if you're going to listen to it, to also do that. And it was just a great read. I loved everything about it. It was definitely sad. It took me a good while to get through this, like probably 2 weeks, because it really is dense material, and it's not light and happy, which it doesn't need to be, but just go knowing into that. If like sexual assault triggers you or things like that, then definitely this is not the book for you, but it's definitely a powerful memoir, and I'm very glad that I read it. And yeah, I'm just glad I know what the hype is about now. Next, we're going to go with a book that I absolutely love, but it is getting some slack from other people like Aaron from Booked and Busy and Chandler and even Katie Colson. Like all my people, they didn't like this book, and that is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. No, I do not have it with me. My mom stole it. My mom steals everything as soon as I finish this. So if you're watching this, Mom, I do love you, but still. So, Book Lovers was super cute. It was Emily Henry. I read People We Meet on Vacation. I haven't read Beach Read yet. I'll get to that soon. But I honestly loved Book Lovers. A lot of people are saying that they didn't like it because they felt like it was too long and that Charlie and it made no sense for Charlie and who's the other guy? Oh, the girl. I can't remember her name right now. It didn't make sense for the two characters. Nora. It didn't make sense for Charlie and Nora to hate each other, which I'm gonna lie, not gonna lie. It didn't really make sense because they got in an argument once at like some editing, publishing thing, and then they like hated each other from that, and that doesn't really make sense. So yeah, there are definitely plot points now after I've heard all the people's negative reviews about it that I could be like, oh yeah, maybe it wasn't that great. But I just loved it. I thought it had this wonderful like sister dynamics in it, and that Charlie and Nora were just so cute, and I just loved everything about it. So you know what? People can hate it, but I had a good time with it. I think she's a great writer. I can't wait to read more of her stuff, and you know, she just kind of does it for me. She just knows how to write a good romance. And that's all I got to say on that. And let's go to my favorite romance of the month, and that was definitely The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegmund Broca. This was an anticipated read for this year, and it did not disappoint. I loved this book. It was so stinking cute. I also love that where they write their novels is in this little house in the Keys, which is where I grew up and where my family lives right now. So I thought that was awesome. So anyway, this was super nice. It was about Katrina and Nathan, and they were literary stars. They wrote a book or two together, and then something happened, and they ended up not talking again and not wanting to write together again, but they were on contract for one more book. So then they have to get back together and write one more book, and then it's about, are they going to address the elephant in the room? Like, what happened that tore them apart from, like, being able to write together? And I just loved it. And they end up like writing all of the things that they want to say to each other, like through their characters in this next book that they are writing. And this is just so pure and so sweet. And it was just fantastic. I loved it. It did have a little bit of the miscommunication trope, but not even. And like, it was one of those where like they were able to resolve it and work it out, which is my favorite thing. What I hate is when people don't end up together because of the stupid miscommunication trope, and it's literally something that could be solved if you said like 2 sentences to each other. Like, I can't stand that in a romance. I really can't. But this one did it really well. So if you're looking for a nice romance that handles that miscommunication trope well, and it's also super cute and just so good, then I would recommend this. And what makes this even better is that these people are a married couple. They're a writing duo that wrote about a writing duo. So it's just magical in my eyes. All right, we are down to our last 2 books, my 5-star favorites, and the second to last favorite one is They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. I asked for this for Christmas and I only just got to it now, but I'm so glad I finally got to it. It was a 5-star anticipation or a 5-star prediction, and it did not disappoint. It was a 5 stars. I loved this book. So this was about Scarlett Clark. She's a English professor that basically murders men on campus that did something horrible, like sexually assaulted someone or things like that. People that deserved it. And how there's someone finally investigating those murders and she has to stay out of the way of getting caught. But then it also is following this girl that is in college currently that something happens to one of her friends who's assaulted at a party, and she becomes enraged. And so I had all these predictions about what was going to happen and how the 2 like timelines were going to like coalesce together, because like one timeline is Scarlett and one timeline is the girl, Carly. But nothing that I thought was going to happen happened. It was so shocking, which the audiobook is awesome because it has 2 different narrators, one for Scarlett, like this older professional woman, and then one for Carly, who's younger. And yeah, nothing that I thought happened was going to happen. And there was a huge plot twist right in the middle that I was like, well, now that we've had this plot twist, where on earth is this book going to go from here? Like, you know, when you get those plot twists where you're like, well, where is this book going to go? Well, I know, you know, I'm going to tell you where it went. I'm not really. It went nowhere but up. It was so good. And the ending is just so good. It is such good for her energy. Like, I read this in probably like a day, honestly. It was just so good. I would reread this again in the future. I definitely will put this on a list of books that I want to reread at the end of the year because this was just fantastic. My mom keeps asking to borrow it. And she should, because you know what? This slapped. So if you have not read this yet and you are into thrillers, especially like dark academia serial killer murders. Can I say words? I don't know. Read this. All right. And now we need to talk about my absolute favorite book of not only this month, but probably of this year. I loved it so much. And I keep thinking about it, about how it's really honestly a simple book. And there's not much to it, but it's fantastic. And that is Other People's Clothes by Calla Henkel. Now, I did buy this on a whim, primarily because of the cover. But you know what? The cover is stunning. And sometimes beautiful purchases make for beautiful things. And in this case, it definitely did. So this one is about Miss Zoe Beach, and she ends up studying abroad in Europe, in Berlin, after her friend is brutally murdered, like walking down the street, like at college or something. And so she moves to Berlin to study abroad with like this other girl that she's not really big friends with that was popular, named Haley, and they start to become friends in Berlin, and they live in this sublet. They rent this sublet by this well-known thriller writer named Beatrice Beck. And then they start realizing that they're being watched, and they're wondering, like, who's watching them? Like, did this person have to do with her friend's murder and all of that? And so it's like a thriller, but the thing about it is that a lot of it, honestly, no plot really happens until like 60% in. It's very slow moving, and it's very character based. And so I really liked this because honestly, this book was like a huge like transformation story, or like acceptance story for Zoe, and like allowing herself to like be who she is, which is lesbian or bi in this. So like she loved her best friend, and like, you know, loved her, and then she loves like the person that she's with, and like she's finally allowing herself to like be who she is. So this was like a big like coming of age kind of story for her, which I loved. But I just love the way the author like describes things. Like, it was just, I don't know, it's just like the way she talks about things, I just really, really loved. Like, I want to find an example. Like, I couldn't find an example because I just love this entire book. But the way she wrote was just so intriguing, and it was very character focused for like most of it, which is not normally the way that I want to go with books. But then all the like drama and stuff comes in like 60% on, and then the last freaking sentence, the last sentence was a game changer, because you like find out finally some really important information, and then you find out, and then you're like, oh my God, are you going to write me a sequel? But I don't think they're going to write me a sequel for this. This book was fantastic. I recommend it to everyone. I loved this. I probably think this is probably going to be my book of the year, quite honestly. I don't know if something's going to top this, but it was so good. So if you're interested in like thrillers, but you don't mind that it's like very character focused, and it's also like a coming of age story in the middle of it, then definitely read it. But I just can't say enough good things about this book. Like, it was just such a fun time. I'm so glad I read it. I already want to reread it again. I'm definitely going to be rereading this again. And I don't reread books. So if I'm saying I'm going to reread a book, like, you should take that seriously. Yeah, it was great. It was great. All right, and so that is all of the books that I read in May. I had a really great month. I'm very excited about it. There are definitely some books that I did not get to. Like, I didn't get to The Haunting of Ashburn House, which I was supposed to read for Gabby Reads Book Club, but I heard that none of them really enjoyed it, and that is a cozy horror book, and I don't even know if I would enjoy a cozy horror book, so you know what? It is what it is. And there were some other books that, you know, didn't make it, and that I swapped out for others because I am trying to get to my anticipated reads, but it is what it is. And with that, I will let you guys go. I will see you in a video coming very soon, and not much more to say. All right. Bye, guys.